When we talk about leadership style and how things are done in Nigeria, particularly, one begins to ask oneself a whole lot of questions. How on earth did we get here? For how long has this practice been in place that has seen to it that, it looks as though it's impossible to get to change? It looks as though things the likes of corruption cannot be solved or cannot be done with. But that's not the case. We've seen very, very corrupt nations move from where they are to predominantly better places and better choices. It all starts with the realization that greed for personal gain, or greed on different levels, greed on an individual base, on a community base, on a continental base, or on a national base can actually cause havoc, and also the realization of such can also see to it that things get better. And greed has to do with insecurity. They have to be doing away with that particular idea of insecurity, the insecurity of what tomorrow holds, insecurity of what can happen to me if I decide not to steal. What becomes of me? Will you get the same security you are trying to get when you want to keep everything for yourself? Just take, for instance, if everybody get their fair share of what was meant for everybody, and everybody is focused on seeing to it that, the status quo remains like this, then who wants to go after that of another person? Because if everybody have healthcare, if everybody have the basic amenities that can be found within their reach in a society, the rate of crime gets to reduce, because such people will not really be thinking about, how do I feed, how do I pay my bills, how do I go about living my life, how do I see to it that my family don't go extinct, or I don't get embarrassed or insulted as a man who, in a world that is still highly patriarchal, I cannot provide for my family. A thing I think we should have overcome by now in the 21st century, because I think in the 21st century we should do better. We should make room available for both men and women to thrive on places they can, say, for what biology has deemed impossible. So this train of thought came to me the other day. And what are they? I was thinking about the whole HK phenomenon that has become a serious thing in a country like us, Nigeria. In other words, will I call that low-key prostitution? No, I don't want to call that. Because even in developed countries, prostitution is still a driving force for the economy of countries, alongside pornography, alongside alcoholism, alongside cigarette sales, and many other unmentionable stuff down here on our channel today. Imagine, for instance, that the girl you slept with yesterday and gave her 100,000 naira had a job, or had a society that provided for her. Do you think you would have come to sleep with her in the way you did? And you slept with her because probably you had an urge, or probably you felt you had the means of doing that. Put yourself in your former shoes. A young man who ordinarily would have proposed to a girl, and the girl accepted, not actually looking at his financial situation, because ordinarily probably you would have had a job, you would have had one or two things going on for you, you would have had social security, you would have had the police to be there for you, you would have had a whole lot of basic stuff that would get life going for you. Same also as the girl you were proposing to, or the girl you were trying to ask out. And she wouldn't have been so interested in financial stability and financial well-being as most girls have come to be in Nigeria, because she also would have had one or two things going on for her. She would have been probably a banker, she would have been probably a lawyer, probably an engineer, probably an entrepreneur. And what would this have done? This would have also made her guards to be a bit low, because there would have been a stability on your side, on her side. You would have been getting a flow of income. She also would have been doing that, so that she would not really have been thinking about money or financial stability while choosing, because she chose that because probably she never had a job, or there's the naira inflation, which she also wants a person in her life that will give her a sense of stability, which made her to turn your relationship off or down, which made you in turn follow my train of thought here, which made you in turn to give up on the prospect of asking ladies out, because you feel for every time you go out to ask somebody out, you'll be embarrassed because your financial situation will be brought into question. And now probably you've come to make the necessary amount of money you think that is enough for you to go out for a girl. But then the last time you checked, when you came back to the table, the economy of the country has not gotten better. More of your own kind of people have also been embarrassed or have also been shamed in the past, which has come to make it difficult to actually find what you would now call true love. So what do? You go ask HK girl out, or you go ask a prostitute, because that's an easy way for you, because you no longer see it necessary to ask a girl out. And this becomes a problem because there's been a turn in society. And where did this turn start from? It started from the very moment when corruption by leaders was made a thing, the norm. And this has necessitated the society to continually move downwards. You see, when they say sin or evil done anywhere is evil done everywhere. So that what would have been for everybody has now been kept for a group of persons. But then, as it has been kept for a group of persons, it makes it even more difficult to live in such society. Because what? There have been a turn in the construction of the society. There have been a shift in the biopower. And this would continue to lead down. There will be dishonesty. There will be insincerity in people. There will be difficulty on the areas of trust. People will no longer be trustworthy. People are just looking out for where they can get one or two stuff. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying true love don't exist, but I'm just giving you a syllogism from the premise that, corrupt practices and leaders who make corruption possible see to it that a society disintegrates to the barest minimum. Take, for instance, the whole idea of kidnapping. Why we have those who ordinarily would want to do this, but I still strongly believe on causation. I believe in causation for a whole lot of reasons, not for everything, but almost for everything, because it looks as though life is deterministic, but it depends on what you call determinism here. Look at the guys who go about kidnapping people. Why there are those who do it for pleasure, like Augustine in his Confessions, stole peer just for the pleasure of the peer, not necessarily for the peer itself. So also we have some who just want to kidnap for fun. But below this mark are those who kidnap because they need resources to feed themselves. They need resources to stay alive. They need resources to see to it that life goes on well for them. And one of the easiest ways to do is to steal from the rich. The Robin Hood kind of idea. Steal from the rich, help the poor. And we have a whole lot of persons like this in society. Would they have disintegrated to such a point if the society was well-to-do, the society was well-structured, and everybody sees the common good as a precedence that must be given its due course? Do you think the lecturer ordinarily would have wanted to collect bribe from students if he got well paid? I remember Peter B posting something about his colleague back then in school and how such has been a professor and has remained on the same payroll for more than a decade. And you get to see that the chances that this professor would honorably want to do something outside ethical standards is very, very high. But if such is being well compensated for his contribution to the well-being of society and the advancement of knowledge, he would really be thinking of the corrupt practices. He would really be thinking of money for grades, because he's not like asking this money because he feels like asking for this money. There's a point where he just gets to, just asking for this money, but then there are points also where, they do this because they actually want to feed their family, because they live in the same society like we do. And they have needs, they have bills, they have kids in school, they have family to feed, they have themselves to take care of. I'm not justifying this, but I'm just pointing to the fact that a society can only grow and be stable and has its integrity and its structures in place when leaders begin to think, first putting the people who have brought them in power before almost every other thing. Because there's no way there will be a movement in society towards the right direction if basic things are not put in place. If healthcare is not fixed, if education is not fixed, if security is not fixed, we don't even really need to be so security conscious if we can fix things like the development of the human person. Because I think security becomes so important when we know that, the society has failed or the world has failed, and then there will be intentions of war, or there will be plan of sabotage a country and the lives of that we begin to build on stuffs like that. Beefing the security of any country is important because the world has not been so peaceful. I think it's just only in recent times we've enjoyed relative peace in the world, despite the numerous wars we've had around us and the likes of that. We've had terrible wars and terrible conflicts in times past, but we are grateful for the times we've come to have in a recent time. We can equally do better. The world can equally be better and things can go well. And I'm not saying peace is an illusion, but it has to be from the education of a people, the giving of people basic amenities, the killing of tribe, the killing of race, the killing of class, the killing of this idea of elitism, and then probably fostering a more humane world. But is that happening anytime soon? No. So that we still have wars going on in places like Gaza, we still have conflicts in Congo, we still have issues going on in Sudan, Ethiopia, Yemen, and a whole lot of other places. Ukraine and Russia is close by, and a whole lot of other places that the news have refused to cover. Recently, Kenya has been protesting its bad leaders and what such should do and how such should get out of their sunlight, like Diogenes asks the emperor to get out of my sunlight, Alexander the Great. They have just been standing on the way of these people for too long, and I think the best thing is to just get out. If you cannot rule the people, just get out. Take a bow when the ovation is still very high. The fact that the president of Kenya had to wait for people to die and for as many persons to get to protest before he gets to listen to them or call off such a bill goes a long way to tell how insensitive such a leader was and still is. And I watched the interview he granted, and I couldn't just, wrap my head around the fact that he needed to say those type of stuff, and it just exposes how dumb some of these leaders or some of these persons we tend to hold in high esteem actually are. So the next time when you look at the HK girl as a big man, as a big boy, and you think you can pay her to sleep with her, and she offer you services, just look around yourself. You have a problem, because the problem is that you've been robbed of the possibility of finding true love. And you've been robbed of the possibility of actually having to enjoy mutual sex, having to really enjoy the trusting and the warmth and the weight of all that process and that experience can give. Because what you're doing when you hire a prostitute is not you actually feeling, it's not you actually love making, it's actually you trying to masturbate. In a very, very broader sense, it's like you trying to actually masturbate, but you actually need a life partner, and you pay for this. The next time you look at the fact that you need a letter from a well-to-do politician to apply for a job or to get a visa, or you need to go to a church to pray your life out, or to a mosque to get to give some imam money to say some prayers for you to get a visa out of your country, a country such as Nigeria and as many countries as you might find yourself, just know that there has been a breach in what ordinarily should be the norm. The next time you have to pray to God, necessarily because you want not to be kidnapped by kidnappers and you don't want to be robbed by armed robbers, just know that the society you're living inside or you're living in has compromised on the standards that ordinarily should make it impossible, or to bring it to the barest minimum, the fact that barest minimum, the possibility of being kidnapped or being robbed. The next time you have to be rejected by a girl simply because of your financial status and how things are going for you, just know that the society you're living in has just compromised on the well-being of its people, making it almost impossible for someone like you to actually find true love. The next time you sit down and you cannot actually afford the basic things of life, just know that the society you live in has compromised a whole lot. And it starts with the government. And it starts with asking them lots of questions. It starts with understanding the sense of leadership, understanding how things get to go, understanding how things get to flow, and how life can be better, and how life can grow, and how we as a people can develop. But until then, just know you've been highly compromised on. Your love life has been robbed. Your sense of innocence has been taken away. Your sense of sheer interconnectedness and the reciprocal nature of this by the other has been altered, so that you now live in a society that is dishonest, a society that has taken to pornography, a society that has taken to drugs, a society that has taken to alcoholism, not the intake of alcohol, alcoholism, a society that has taken into substances that alter their sense of thinking so that they can run away from reality for as short a time as possible and then come back to it again or whatever, because the problems are there. Alcohol doesn't take away the problems of life. It gives you a good feeling, but after that, what? It's still there. It's hanging like a heavy halo around your neck. The problems of life can be fixed when we look at them squarely. We look at them so deep, but not to become what Nietzsche said, gazing into the dark and becoming darkness oneself, or becoming dark one within oneself, but looking so deep at the problems that we we want to really solve them. Looking so deep at the problems of peace that we really want to have honest conversations around the likes of this, from the wars in Yemen to those in Ukraine, from the conflict in Gaza to what have you. All these can be looked at squarely when we want to be honest with ourselves, when we want to put down our selfish interests, and when we want to really look at the fact that, the world can be a better place, the world can grow, the world can be a whole lot of things if we can actually give ourselves time. There are conflicts around border areas, and I begin to ask myself, there's enough land to build upon. There's enough land to actually go around for everybody. Russia is the largest country by landmass. But it's not to belittle the fact of the politics around the current disagreement or the current conflict. I'm not supporting the war in any way. I'm not supporting I just want the war to stop. But there's the fact that there's enough land to go around, and yet it's not enough to go around because we've sold ourselves meat that the lands can't go around, leaves me sick, because it comes back to what we've been talking about: greed. Greed has done terrible things to humans. Greed has taken a whole lot out of us. It has taken the sense of reasoning from us, and we almost don't have a sense of thinking, a sense of rationality, because we get our minds shut by greed. Greed is what is keeping the war in Ukraine still going on. If we are honest enough to tell ourselves the truth, that there are people benefiting from armed struggle, we would be halfway the solution to the problem. Because to get missiles, to get ammunition, to get weapons of mass destruction, to get these so-called nuclear weapons that a whole lot of countries have been mentioning N-word here. It's very, very expensive and very, very alarming, and people are benefiting from this. So you don't want them ordinarily to want to see to it that there's peace. But that's a conversation for another day. And so, how should societies go? Society should have honest conversations around themselves, and tell themselves, we want progress, we want to go forward, we want to move forward, we want to push ahead. We want to see to it that the world gets to work, and the world around us and our neighbors around us also get to survive. And how do we do that? By having honest conversations and tell ourselves, our experiences are as important as the experiences of the next man. That is it. That is how to go forward. The experiences of the next woman is as important as my own experiences and my own lived embodiment and my own lived, ideas and all that. Until we begin to see ourselves in the next person, which is a thing we barely do, we labor in vain. I am Biringkpa Mecca.